Start by inviting David. So, give me an R.
R.
Give me an O.
O.
Give me an N.
N.
Give me an N.
N.
I.
G.
G. E. R. What's that spell?
Ronniger.
What's that spell?
Ronniger.
What's that spell?
Ronniger.
Yeah. He'd be, if he's watching, he'd be happy to see us all here. And none of us know everybody else here, maybe Lenny possibly, but we, David knew us all in some way or another. And it's going to be hard to, impossible to fill his shoes. I'll get more on that in a minute. But where is David now? I've always wondered that. Where do you go when you die? One of the searches. And you have an answer.
He's on the wind.
You go on the wind.
And today, that's why he's
And there's a lot of ideas on where you go. Some people say you go to heaven, or possibly to hell. Some people say you go somewhere in between. There used to be purgatories and limbos. Some people say that you go off planet. Some people say you go into the planet. Some people say that you hang around with your body for a while before you graduate and move off into some other realm. And some people say that wherever you go, that you can still communicate with those dead loved ones. We have thousands of examples of people communicating with their dead loved ones after they pass. So I just invite you all that if you ever have any forgivenesses or things to settle up with David, you can still work on them. It's not over. So you can talk to David wherever he is, carry on conversations. Maybe we can't hear anything, but I like to have angels that send messages. So there's all these messenger angels. So nothing's ever really over. So the schedule for the day is we've got a couple of obituaries or eulogies to read, and then we're going to invite anybody and everybody here that wants to get up and say a few things about David or something about David. And after that's all over, we've got a couple of songs, and then we're going over to eat at the Nutrition Center. You're all invited. After that, there's going to be a cake somewhere over here. David did like his beer now and then. So, and then, so that's the, socializing at the end there. So that's the schedule of events. Now, did I miss anything I was supposed to, that I didn't mention?
Music.
Music. There's going to be music at different times over at over at the meal and then afterwards over here. Thanks to you. And we also, who outstanding has got a pipe ceremony he would offer later on for those who wish. We can say more about that at that time. So I think I'd like to start with Laura reading her piece.
David Ronniger grew up in the Federal Heights neighborhood of Salt Lake City. After high school, he joined the Marines. When his father, who was an OB/GYN doctor, died, David, his mother, his younger brother, and sister opened Whole Earth Natural Foods in 1971. In 1977, David left Salt Lake City to pursue his dream of being a farmer. His siblings, Molly and Steve, continued to run the store until 1985. David ended up with a farm in Moy Springs, Idaho, and put in nearly 40 years of work there. One winter, in the early days of his farming career, he was given a bag of unusual potatoes. With his uncanny knack for predicting upcoming agricultural trends, he held on to the potatoes all winter, studying up on the long-forgotten varieties and making plans to begin multiplying them during harvest. His crop turned out to be a bumper crop that year, and Ronniger's potato farm was born. He changed Idaho from a monoculture potato crop to a cornucopia of variety. David was instrumental in introducing over 200 varieties of certified organic seed potatoes and 10 varieties of fingerling potatoes. His customers were on the forefront of potato history. Ronniger's potato farm achieved something close to rock star status in the world of agriculture. There are dozens of articles written about him and his farm in magazines like Martha Stewart, The New Yorker, Rocky Mountain Gardening, Hobby Farms, Montana Health Journal, National Gardening, and Smith Country Life, just to name a few. That's not all that David is famous for. In 1990, he got a Halflinger horse from a friend who was downsizing his own herd. The Halflinger is a small, sturdy horse with a friendly nature. David used him in his fields. 15 years later, David was the second largest breeder of this horse in the U.S. David was one of the few people in the western United States who had a Can't hear you, Laura.
Blowing the wind.
Yep.
You done?
I think it's done.
Anything else to say? David was one of the few people in the western United States who knew how to process the indigenous seeds of the area. He started off by collecting conifer seeds for Christmas tree farms across the country and soon started harvesting seeds for small trees and native shrubs. He collected seeds in Montana, Idaho, Washington, and British Columbia, national parks and forests for species such as quaking aspen, bunchberry dogwood, and Rocky Mountain maple to ensure their continued existence. He processed hundreds of thousands of pounds of seeds. Michael Pilarski is going to tell you more about the Native Seed Foundation that David started. David's days on the farm were long, and he didn't hire much outside help. He prided himself on being self-sufficient and conscious of the environment. He would reuse and recycle. He went to auctions and rebuilt his farm equipment. He had his own sawmill, cut the lumber for the buildings that he built. He had old bikes which his workers used to get around on the farm. The farm in Idaho is being continued by David's son Simon and his family. David wrote that he retired to Hot Springs. During this retirement, he remodeled and opened Camas Organic Market and then later added a large addition. He developed his little farm so he could provide his community and all the visitors with locally grown produce. He built a large root cellar and added created a high tunnel greenhouse. He wrote that his intention was to set a precedence in hot springs for this community and other communities, families, and individuals to see how simply we can live and appreciate the wisdom in smallness. He believed people must learn to grow a garden, learn about nutrition, and start meals from scratch. He wanted the store to be a place for people to come together and share what they are learning and growing. I quote, "What I really want to see is an explosion of awareness. The only way to help people change their way of thinking is through education. Information is everywhere these days, but first-person accounts, actually seeing how to make it happen, that's what hits close to home." Certainly anyone who appreciates high-quality vegetables, plants, and even horses can agree that our community's produce selections and our entire nation's agricultural selections are a lot better off because of David. David Ronniger, we thank you.
Yes.
I started writing something up the other day, so I'll read parts of that. Farewell to David Ronniger. We will miss your soft smile and your laugh. David Lee Ronniger, December 1st, 1944, July 2nd, 2017. David leaves a large legacy. Millions of plants are alive due to his Food with Native Seed Foundation, a seed business for native Northwest plants, which particularly specialized in shrubs, especially berries. Many tons of seeds were cleaned out by David. He would process thousands of pounds of serviceberry, elderberry, Oregon grape, currants, and rose hips each year. These were sold to nurseries around the use and used for reseeding programs after wildfires. David was one of the Northwest's biggest native shrub seed suppliers for the decades he was in business, and there's millions of plants out there. That's a great, what a nice legacy to leave behind. Millions of plants pumping out oxygen and berries for the environment. Millions of people have been fed due to his Ronniger's potato business. David built up his seed potato business to host the largest selection of potato varieties in the U.S. at the time. He introduced many new potato varieties to the public, and we continue to enjoy those varieties today. David was a great farmer. He really knew how to grow potatoes and just about anything else. But David was a phenomenal farmer, and I've known hundreds of farmers. His main, and he grew really good vegetables just out here at Camas, just really showing the way that, we could grow so much more food around here if we wanted to. So David just set a little bit of a precedent there, and so I hope that we'll have a lot more as we move ahead. And when David started up the Camas Natural Food Store on Main Street here, and he ran the business with his partner Gibson until his death. And it was and is a great place to buy healthy food and to bump into like-minded friends. I mean, I just can't imagine, Hot Springs wouldn't be what it is today, at least for many of us, without that store there where you can go in and meet other people and hang out. You can do that to all the stores here, but it had a special, just really special to be able to go in there. So thanks to Lenny and David and everybody that works or worked at Camas Natural Food for supplying that service. Not only good food, but just the socializing aspect. Every town and city should have a natural food store. Now that's my idea of a future world where every town and every neighborhood has stores like Camas. We heard about David raising and breeding Halflinger horses. And they're just such a wonderful workhorse. They're just one of the friendliest, most affectionate, easiest to work with, safest horses to work with that we have in the world. And he really helped bring them out. And for a period of time, he was also building surreys and horse buggies. And so that's another little side business he had for a while. And David was one of the best huckleberry pickers of his day. I remember David, and I picked with David one season 20 gallons a day of huckleberries. He could bring in 20 gallons. I could do that too. We both could bring in 20 gallons a day of huckleberries. That's a lot of huckleberries. And he really knew his business. And he bought a part interest in a little huckleberry factory in Kalispell, so that he would always have a buyer. He knew that if he was one of their owners, that he would have a guaranteed market. And they would come up into the woods where we were outside of Libby, drive up there with their stainless steel containers and come and give us all, and take all of our huckleberries and pay us cash on the barrelhead. That was probably one of the best jobs I ever had. And and so it was really great to share that with David. And David was a great builder. And over the years, he built, he built a really big, his big house at Moyer Springs. But I remember when I lived with him in 1978, he built an underground house. It was, open to the south, living roof, earthen roof on top, built into a hill, and it was cool, warm in the winter, cool in the summer, just a doll of a house. And I remember years later, we eventually left God's Garden, and the house was abandoned. I went back there years later, and it held up really well, even under neglect. It just worked really well. He built barns. He built lots of potato sheds for his tons of potatoes. He built sheds, and he built a house here, a wood cellar, and he was a really good builder too. So he was also a family man and had a number of families, and he survived. He has 2 sons and 1 daughter. And his son Simon really helps carry on his tradition and still farming today. So he enjoyed fishing. It's amazing that he would take time out from his busy schedule. He's trying to do all these things. Is Amanda here yet? She had something she would read if she showed up. But Amanda said that she noticed that he would carry, in the morning, he would make up this long list of all the things he was going to do during the day, and he'd keep in his pocket. And every day he'd be checking off all these things, and he'd still squeeze in time for some fishing as well. So there's an old saying we have that there's this. You may have heard this little story that when a shaman in the Amazon dies with all his knowledge of all the plants and all the information he's gathered through his life, it's like an encyclopedia of knowledge has died with him. Well, that's kind of what I think about Ronniger. I mean, he's been passing on information to Michael Billington here about how to clean those seeds out. He's passed on information about some of his things to people, but David just knows tons of things that nobody else knows. That's passed on. But everybody knows things that nobody else knows. But David was really special. He had a lot of knowledge.
And he looked for the knowledge. Like when he was at that Salt Lake City, he drove out to all the farmers, and that's how he decided he wanted to be a farmer. He kept talking to them, and he started noticing people who did good vegetables and bad vegetables and good places to grow. And he searched for the place up in Idaho, and he thought that was perfect.
And it was.
Yeah, and it is.
And so he accumulated knowledge, and he shared it. And he was passing it on. I remember when we were young in 1978, and he was hanging out with this old farmer in North Idaho and learning from him. getting tips, loaning equipment, and he just really adored that old farmer, and really just sort of sat at his feet and was mentored by that old farmer. And I thought, David died too early. He would have,
Been the perfect
he would have been a great old farmer. He was. But it would be nice if he could have another 10 or 20 years of mentoring some more people to pass that information on. Some people measure a person by their wealth. How much money have you made? How many things have you accumulated? I think a much better world would be where you're measured by how much you give. How much have you given to society? How much have you given to people? How much have you given to your community? David gave a lot. Imagine how many people he fed. He just fed a lot of people. He fed the environment. So David gave a lot. So we can measure a great man by how much he gives. So by that measure, David is really, really good. There's my little few comments and a little bit of what I know about David. So I'd like to open it up for other people. They can, if you'd like, you could come up and talk from up here. If you'd rather, you could just stand up in place. And but I'm going to surrender my spot here. And
I heard he was a rock concert promoter.
Part of the reason why Spearing was so bad, he was one of the original people who set up speakers at rock concerts.
That was a brief moment. Before it was after he got out of the army and before he went to the war. Before he opened the health store.
So I think one of the reasons why David was one of my favorite people is he was the only man I've ever met who is happy to find me pooping in his yard. I passed out some of his catalogs and, from when he had Ronniger's potatoes, and he was always gathering a lot of quotes, and he had them pinned up in all sorts of places, and he selected a lot of them and put them in his catalogs. So as you're thumbing through those, just maybe read some of them and note that this is something that David thought was really important for people to see. Yeah. Thank you, Skeeter, for being in that team. I know that you guys have quite a history and you're both living with that. I'm immeasurably grateful that you've both put so much effort into learning and sharing the ripple effects that it has caused in the world. Here's that. I was burdened and blessed to be close to David throughout the process of his life slipping away. And I was there as often as I could through 2 surgeries and way too many days in the hospital. And after being close enough to witness that degree of hardship, the first thing I have to say is thank you. Your unrelenting kindness and care for David is a true measure of the quality of your person. Thank you for putting yourself at your own edge to care for such a great man. And since David cared for the community and you cared for David, I believe it is this community's responsibility to help care for you. If we want to honor David, then we should all support Lenny. May the energy you expended stewarding such a bright soul come back to you tenfold. I think we should send her flowers, cook her food, and anything we can do to balance you.
Don't go to the top.
Either way,
Show
thank
up at
you,
her
Lenny.
house.
Even to the very last breath, David lived with determination. Never once did he give the impression of defeat. And the last chapter of his life was consumed by the drive to get back to Idaho, and I am grateful to have witnessed his return. We put his body in a hole dug by his second favorite tractor in the pasture that once housed his herd of world-class horses. His body lies beneath the willow tree that we planted to one day provide basket material that will always carry a peace upon. The man who has given so much on behalf of the earth has now given his final offering. David, may God guide your spirit to unite with Marley in your proper places. And if it is right for the path of your spirit, may you still linger amongst this world to guide the hands of the farmers, to sharpen the eyes of the fishermen, to hone the minds of tool innovators, and to guide the paths of those working to heal themselves. We will miss your presence, but I would like to believe it remains in some way. I studied David very closely for 2 years. I did so because I believe in him. I met him 5 years ago when he delivered a load of logs to a straw bale building that Peter was instrumental in establishing. When I met him, all I could think was, who is this man? And I discovered that answer very well in the subsequent years. As Skeeter said, he was a living encyclopedia of dying skills and rare knowledge. I soon learned he was the man who opened the first health food store in Salt Lake City, the man who set up speakers for some of the first rock concerts. He was the man who, this is a great story, when he was about 13, all of his other brothers and the sisters were asking for things for Christmas that were already made, toy plane, this or that. But he asked for a shopsmith, which is an old piece of equipment that you could use to basically build anything. And around the age of 13, he built a drift boat to go fishing on. And I think that's a great example of his mindset to explore and discover and to create. He was a pioneer organic seed potato grower, and he was the man who built the building every year. And he was a pioneer for native seed reclamation work, and the man who raised a rare herd of workers. Carpentry, farming, milling, preparing food, the list goes on. There are many who are a jack of all and master of none, but not many who are master of most and jack of some. In a world of mediocrity, David shined like a candle in the dark. Most of his actions were like a luminary for guiding right living, a beacon for a new generation hungry for the path to Eden. David was blessed with the rare combination of earth-based intelligence, strong heart and empathy, drive, curiosity, and most importantly, in my opinion, a disposition for action. Many people break trail for the glory, but few people are willing to break trail simply for the experience. David was hardwired for discovery. His resting state was active. He did his best to pay attention to God's will and act on it. He told me once that he wasn't sure if the ideas that came to him were his own or were God throwing him a bone. Many days when we awoke to live out the day and work in unison, he would tell me of a dream that he had and how he had to follow up on it. And most of us dream, but few of us carry them out. And not only did David enact his dreams, he shared them with others. I once asked him, why? Why do you put so much effort into this store, this town, when you could do anything you want? And he selflessly told me, because this village needs good food. We all have our not so bright parts of us, and I've heard him called greedy and self-centered, even by people in this community and beyond. And I have even received warnings about working with him. And it's true that he was not always an easy man to work with, but if you were humble, then he would teach you better ways to do things. People are quick to criticize what they don't understand, especially if comparing themselves to another's greatness. And he knew that that money had the power to create action, and that by generating money, we gain the ability to fuel the action we wish to see in the world. I do not believe he was self-centered. He was focused and had purpose. And at times, his walk required him to put his priorities before others. But the core of those priorities was service to humanity and earth. This community called on David constantly, for good reason. And one of David's greatest insights on how to achieve things was to not put your hammer down. and he always emphasized this to me. And what he was saying is that while you wield the hammer in your hand, do everything you can with that hammer before you put it down. Despite this philosophy, on a daily basis, he would selflessly put down his hammer to get someone a battery charger, loan them money for a truck, aid them with tractor work, answer their questions, order them something they wanted. And he did this out of good nature, out of service, because he knew it takes a village. Early in our close friendship, I asked him, "Why did you choose to live in Hot Springs?" And he said, "Because people come here to heal, and I want to help, and I could use a bit of healing myself." Later, when he asked me the same question, I told him this is the truth. Because you're here. He put immense effort into helping this community to grow and heal. And I pray that this community amplifies those efforts and carries them forward. David once told me, "It's easier to take than to give, but it's more fulfilling to give than to receive." And if we want to honor the life of such a great man, then embodying this insight is a great step towards creating a living legacy. He told me that simple minds talk about people, mediocre minds talk about events, and great minds talk about ideas. Most of us talk about all of those. Some people talk fast and take little action, and some people don't have conversations. They talk you into submission. And David emphasized to me how it seems like people today have forgotten how to speak with each other. He would say, it's a back and forth, listen and respond. And he felt that a quiet, peaceful meal was one of the best arenas for this kind of connecting. In that way, someone once told me that church is not a building. Church is a place where people come together in sincerity under the heart of life. And in that way, Camas to me serves as something like a church, a way to bring people together in a good way. And he believed in this community, and he would demonstrate this faith and dedication through his form of speech, which was action. He walked in full stride and left a wake of examples, demonstrations, and inspiration. When he spoke, it was a volley where he would hold nothing back and offer what he knew. He would ask sincere questions, hoping for sincere answers. And though he always thought he knew a better way to do things, he was still always interested in being taught something new. And I thank Dave for demonstrating so much realness and authenticity. When debating coming to this, I asked myself, what is the purpose of this gathering? To remember a good man? To celebrate and honor his life and contribution? Why would I go? I held his hand through this process. What more can be done? And then I saw that this isn't about me or any one of us. I realized this isn't for David either. David has no more needs. He is finally at a well-deserved peace. This is for the communal organism. It's about the community coming together to heal, to grow, and to remember David's way of life so that we may work to adapt it to our own. David's memory can be a candle for the dark corners of this community. With David's example in mind, this community can become a better version of itself, just as we all can. He taught us all that what is possible when health and hard work come together. And now it is our responsibility to embody the wisdom that he demonstrated through his actions. Thank you everyone for bringing your heart to this occasion, for honoring such a great man. May we all carry forward his wisdom through our own walk. And may we all look at each other with a little bit more sincerity, knowing the brevity of this life. May we let go of the menial judgments we have about each other and instead work together for the greater good. Because if life teaches us anything, it's that it is not easy, but it is a choice to embody joy, and it is a choice to move forward in a good way. May we all play our part in helping to heal ourselves, our collective trauma, and the wounds that have befallen this earth. Thank you, David.
Thank you.
I just want to say for people standing up, there's chairs and places to sit if anybody wants to sit.
There's a whole I met David when I first came to the hot springs, and his gentle smile and his generosity. He used to give me all these little leavings from my homemade soup stock, give me celery. Always seemed to be a smiling and very gentle person. So I would like to read. First of all, Cicero, it says, gratitude is not only the greatest of virtues, but the parent of all others. And I so believe that because I have deep gratitude for all of your support when I was going through this. And my sincere wish when I read this little poem from Heaven, written by a neurosurgeon that had a very similar experience with David. I would hope that if you're all gathered someday for me like this, that these words are what I would also feel. So it's called When Tomorrow Starts Without Me. When tomorrow starts without me, and I'm not there to see, if the sun should rise and find your eyes all filled with tears for me. I wish so much you wouldn't cry the way you did today, while thinking of the many things we didn't get to say. I know how much you love me, as much as I love you. And each time you think of me, I know you'll miss me too. But when tomorrow starts without me, please try to understand that an angel came and called my name and took me by the hand, and said my place was ready in heaven far above, and that I'd have to leave behind all those I dearly love. But as I turned to walk away, a tear fell from my eye. For all my life I'd always thought I didn't want to die. I had so much to live for, so much left yet to do. It seemed almost impossible that I was leaving you. I thought of all the yesterdays, the good ones and the bad. The thought of all the love we shared and all the fun we had. If I could relive yesterday just even for a while, I'd say goodbye and kiss you, and maybe you would smile. But then I fully realized that this would never be, where emptiness and memories would take the place of you. And when I thought of worldly things I might miss from tomorrow, I thought of you, and when I did, my heart was filled with sorrow. So when I walked through heaven's gates, I felt so much at home. When God looked down and smiled at me from his great holy throne, he said, this is eternity, and all I promise you. Take your life on earth. Today your life on earth is past, and here it starts anew. I promise no tomorrow, but today will always last. And since it stays the same way, there's a long before the past. You have been so faithful, so trusting, and so true. Though there were times you did some things you knew you shouldn't do, but you have been forgiven, and now at last you're free. So won't you come and take my hand and share my life with your life with me? So when tomorrow starts without me, don't think we're far apart. For every time you think of me, I'm right here in your heart. And I would like to ask a favor. My brother passed away last Tuesday. I would just like a little prayer said for him, Bill Odie. I'm sure that he would love this thing very much. Thank you.
Well, I didn't know David long, but he would come to the barber shop. I knew him before we opened the bar, but he loved the bar, and he would always bring, well not always, but every couple weeks he would bring us a new puzzle, a metal puzzles with a ring on it. You have to figure out how to get the ring off, and people have endless amount of time with those things. Often don't figure it out. Yes. And like other people had said, he gave so much. Nick said he was his favorite customer because he always came with beer to get him in. And something new to try. And he would drink Moose Drill, and he would, you know, no matter what music was playing, he would say, "Can we put some Western music on?" And half the time I thought I did have the Western music on, but he wanted something older. And he'd say he liked both kinds of music, country and Western. And he just loved having him come in, and he loved swing dancing. He was trying to get better at that. And we would practice a little, and he would, anytime he could get a lady to dance with him, we'd be dancing in there. And he would also bring us packages of organic peanuts served, and I'll definitely miss him, and I just wanted to say that he was a lot of fun for us to have in this community. Besides all of the knowledge and everything, he did want to have fun.
David showed Christ to me in a lot of ways. He was a very forgiving man. He was a peacemaker. And that is the one thing I will try to carry with me. We butted heads because we were both farmers, both Marines, both builders, and both doers. So I'll miss him very much. Oh, and I know where he is, because he loved the Lord God.
One time he told me that the secret of longevity is this: that he stood on his head and opened his legs and
I didn't know what to think of David when I first saw him. Looked at him out of the side of my eye. What I started to realize was I liked him. I got sick before he went off before dark. Look at him, smile at me once his eyeball back. But I don't forget that, the way he looked at me, look at that smile. I'm going to miss the man because he was somebody to kind of look up. I said that one. Beach was obviously I was continually wondering where I kind of wish I'd met him earlier in my life in the sense of what all I've heard here. I didn't know any of that. This was just the person I was looking at. I was looking at him on the side of my head.
met him, you know, on the street walking together. In the winter time, kind of icy, and we went to say hi to each other, and we both slipped at the same time. You know, and I said, we gotta start learning to walk like the Chinese, just shuffle, you know. Now we're both laughing. I didn't really know him that good, you know, and that's how I first got to know him. And every time we see each other, you know, it seemed like we knew each other forever, but we don't, you know, just a few times we meet at times, you know, on the street. But when we share some news, is that we learn from the past, we learn from the elders, and we pass it on. And he was saying the same thing. And that's what he was telling me. He said, that's how you learn? I said, that's how I learn. I listen to the elders, and I pass it on. And he was saying the same thing. That's what he does. Because I was telling him, every time I see him, when he talks to somebody, Dave's always telling somebody how to cook something, how to get that flavor of when he's cooking, what you put in and stuff. And one time he asked me, you want me to write this down for you? I you know, down the line, he'd talk and then he'd bring that up. Remember what it was? What were we talking about? You know, and I forget, you know, and we both laughed about it, you know, and I forgot all about it today. And I talked to one of my friends on the phone. She told me, Victoria, and she told me about today. Me and my other friend, Bill, we went to pick huckleberries today. And I believe animals, they can talk to you, or they give you a message. And I was thinking about Dave when we was picking huckleberries up there. Pretty soon a woodpecker come. And a woodpecker is just like an owl, a messenger carrier. And that woodpecker is telling me about Dave, what's going on today. Go. So I told my friend Dave, you know, did you hear that woodpecker? I said, he did too. And woodpecker's telling us, you know, to come down, even if we're late, come down. So we come down here, and that feels good. Because when I see the people here too, just like in the Bible book, 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 13, the greatest spiritual gift for us to use from faith, hope, and love is love. And that's what we're doing right here. We're showing what love is all about. We're sharing what life can be all about. And love is the greatest spiritual gift. And I believe Dave, that's what he's been doing with a lot of people here in Hot Spring. He's been sharing that with everybody. And so I thought I'd come over here and throw in my 2 cents worth. Well, not 2 cents anymore. The price went up. Knowledge. Thank you, Gerald, for coming down.
My kind of thinking is not that esoteric, but I was very indebted to David because the very first time I met him, I was having a pile up and there were lots of people leaving some nice dishes, and I kept thinking, oh my God, I'm going to clean this up. And then I walked into the kitchen, and there's David. He's got everything spotless. I never realized a man could do dishes like that. And it was just such a relief, and it was such a sweet thing for him to do because he didn't really know me. It was just the first time we met. So that's one of my fondest memories of him.
One of the things I remember about David is that he gave out these cute little bags. They were pretty good size actually. These cute little potatoes. He gave to a lot of his customers for customer appreciation. And so I thought it was appropriate. I took mine home and I think I steamed potatoes or lightly blanched them, and I made them into a topping for shepherd's pie. It wasn't quite as good as the one that Amanda makes at the store, but it was still pretty tasty, and it seemed very appropriate. And I told this story a while back at his prayer service. Bob and I went over all over Kalispell one time, and the store needed some Pyrex glass pipe. We went all over the place, and we were buying these from like the Salvation Army and the Goodwill relatively inexpensively. We bought them to kind of, give the store credit, for the restaurant. He must have tacked on about $8 above what we paid. And I'm like, David, we're not trying to make a profit on this. We're just trying to get even, Oh, don't worry about it, And he insisted on it, And I did with earning with the cash flow, I just thought it was really sweet to hear him out. And I used to show you the pictures of the store that he had down in Utah. And he was so happy about it. He was talking about how, if I recall correctly, it was something like he didn't do share the store to his siblings when he left it. And I thought that was a really sweet, generous gesture also.
Charged him $1.
So they help if people stood up, I think, during the wind when they speak. Oh yeah.
I stood up.
All right, Lynn.
I didn't know David well. I'm reasonably new to Hot Springs, like 3.5 years here. What I knew about him was that I never saw him hold still, ever. He was always in motion. He was always doing something, and he was always busy. And the first thing I thought when I heard that he had crossed was what an unimaginable loss to this community. And I remembered back to a time in my life when I had suffered a great loss, and I searched through literature and music and scriptures and anything that would give me a shred of comfort during that time. And what I found I have clung to over the ensuing 26 years, and it was a very, very short poem by Rabindranath Tagore from India, and he said that death is not extinguishing the light, but putting out the lamp because the dawn has come. And that is what I think for David. The dawn has come, and he will be incredibly missed. And I hope with all of you here that we will continue to honor his incredible legacy with our lives.
Yes, thank you, Lynn. I'm just going to reiterate, because I also didn't know David all that well, and I have the honor of coming, well, I've come to Hot Springs for years and years, decades, but I have the honor of taking your phone call to class, and I've been this person, and what Melinda said, this incredible story he has in his house, all these wonderful foods that he grows and has birds and all the other things that they're all talking about. We need to keep that energy going. I think this is something that we really keep very much. Because he really was a man that lived in the here and now. Like you said, he never stood still. He was always engaged with life and living and growing. And so that's what I got from David. I don't know him very well, but I certainly was incredibly appreciative. I love that store. I love this store. And I love what he grew and brought in there. So that's just all I want to say. I hope we can keep his energy going. A lot of love there.
If I could add to that, what we're recognizing today about the children. Because we're thinking about the real estate. We're not thinking about it. We're thinking about the honor, the land, David gave. And he took his shirt off, scared the shit out of him. Took the right side to do that, and I saw what it done to his back. The other thing was, I'm supposed to fisherman, I was a surfer. Today when I did that. I looked at David, I was stuck in the car, turned back to surfing. And the other thing I recognized, if I had any negative thoughts about David, I'm just looking at my work. That I need. So there's that part. It's a gift. To recognize that whatever gets in your face, it's just a reflection of the aspect of yourself. And I went a year reading. Well, they did that to me. No, we didn't. We created that to happen. And so my time with David, go inside, and what I thought was this or that, I need to change it myself. And that's what David's gift is. And then a lot of other things. So I'll give it to somebody else.
You hear all the talk about David and all the energy and constant moving. If you ever went to plant something, he had it down not waste. Constant movement. He built, for his spacing. He knew the spacing. He had determined the spacing. He'd roll this little thing down there, dig the hole, mark the hole, and dig the hole. He didn't. He had it down. He would get planting the lettuce like down to science. It always amazed me because I could never stay that focused. He would get his method down. And that's how it was done. And then we move on to the next one.
He was neat brothers and brothers. There was nothing neat about his
And they had to be this far apart. And
16 inches between rows, 1 foot between plants.
Yeah, detail about it.
I'd like to say something. Those that don't know me, unless one of his family members that's older than me here, I've known Robert the longest of all the people. We even shared the same wife at one time. Not at the same time. I knew him in Salt Lake City. I worked in his store. I slept in his house when he was in Guatemala and broke the earthquake there. I have two things to say about that guy that I really appreciate. And that is, one, he got me started on the path of being who I am. When I ended up in Salt Lake City with my wife and kid at the time, I hooked in to his store, of course, because that was, back then in the 70s, it was, real limited. And we hooked up with those guys, and he hooked me up with Gene's Juice, and Dr. Hugh Wayman, and Stan Malmstrom, all these guys that wrote the books on health, and herbs, and diet, and all that stuff. And he inspired me to get into the healing arts. And then when I went another direction after a while, he moved up, and that's when he hooked up with Youth Theater, I believe, and the Barter Fair, and God's Garden, and all that in Idaho. And I came over there and actually helped him build that underground house there at God's Garden. He got me to come from South America back up into Washington to join me on Towanna Circle. In fact, we were actually the first family that were living on it while you guys were all cutting wood and building stands and things like that. If I was thinning trees or something. Anyway, yeah, planting trees, that's what it was. Anyway, I have him to thank for being as healthy as I am at 65 years old and knowing the right things to do. The other thing I have to thank is that he did get me up into the northwest. I'm from the southwest. And when about places here. You know, obviously, and then hook up, our family and talk around a circle and so forth. I knew this was home. Now, I came to Montana and to Hot Springs with a vision. That's the third thing I got to thank you for, really. With the idea of community. I mean, I love Cedar and Fruity and all these people, to come here. There's a beautiful place here. But nothing happened, really. Nothing happened other than friends coming until David got here. And created that center of the ultimate culture where all kinds of people can come together. You have so many places in this town now, and now everybody, whether they like each other or not, have to run to go to the store to help. So anyway, I really appreciate David, and he, I've had my head busted with him, and I've known him for a long time. Like I said, kids lived on this farm, I've done it myself. But at the same time, what everybody has said, and I'm blown away, that from him, I understand that. You know that. Freaking awesome, man. Always glad to share. And I'll listen too.
I had the honor of working with David and building on that gathering spot, and he was a lot of fun. Didn't do a lot of things orthodox, but the thing I mostly wanted to share that came up over and over again working with him was he was really into the circle. He'd say, we're on the res, let's make it round. Good man. He's still with us. He came to me the other day in a dream, told me he was going to sleep in and be late to work. That was Monday. For what it's worth.
I'd like to consider myself one of David's friends. I was a great friend of his. I only knew him for, 5 or 6 years. Okay. And and I'd like to say I'm partially responsible for bringing David to Hot Springs. It's a delusion that I run with. I met him at the first barter fair that we had here in Hot Springs, but the reality is I already knew who he was before I met him, because I had bought seed from Ronniger seeds for potatoes. The first potatoes I ever grew were from that company. And so when I came upon him, and this guy with all these sacks and stuff of potential life and food, and I asked him who he was, he said David Ronniger, and I was like, the David Ronniger? And yeah, because in the farming world, and junior farmer, wannabe farmer like myself, he was definitely someone to look up to. I mean, the varieties and just the beauty and the fullness of what Ronniger Seeds and that potato company was, and who David was just incredible. And so I started working on him right away, because we had bought the land here, but we weren't actually here, and I was looking for allies and always trying to, build networks. And so I said, you ought to move to Hot Springs. We have some land. You can come camp out at our place, or maybe we can even talk about you buying in. And so every time I saw David, I think I saw him the next year, and the same thing. Just kind of, hey, you should move to Hot Springs. I mean, this is real, man. This is where the community is. The reality is David already had a lot of connections here, and he knew the community, and he knew he wanted to be here. But maybe I was just, I was just kind of like hammering, kept knocking on it, saying, hey, you ought to come here. But David and I did some business together. I bought cull potatoes for 10 cents originally, then I worked them down to about 8 cents a pound. And then I kept trying to explain to him dry matter versus wet matter and my feed costs, and he got to know me and what I was trying to do in my business, and he would listen, and I could kind of work things out with him as far as talking ideas out. And for, again, like a young farmer like himself, to have someone like him too, But one thing, I wasn't going to say anything, but something I had to share that when I think of him, just smile. Well, whenever I'd see him, he'd always smile, and not everybody does. I mean, it's actually not that common. I mean, maybe it's more than I realize. But he's someone that just about every time I saw him, he would have this whimsical smile, and I think to myself, does he like me? Or does he know something? He's not telling me, like that knowing kind of whimsical, kind of wizard warlord kind of smile that these guys have. And I think it's probably a little both. When he got back from the VA after the first surgery just recently, and I saw him and I went up and gave him a big hug, and I don't know that I've ever given him a hug before, but I just went, he received it, and I said, we really missed you. I missed you, we missed you in this community. And I said, this community really loves you. And he said, yeah, I didn't really know that. Well, they do, man, they really do. You're really loved here. And he said, yeah, I'm starting to realize that. But, like what Michael said, I think as I've gotten older, I've realized so much of what our lives are about is our legacy and what we give. And so David gave a lot in a very short time here, but he also gave the embodiment of hard work, working through things, and not coming up with excuses, but coming up with solutions and just getting it done. And so I hope that, because we are missing something now with his passing and him leaving here and leaving us, but we have that embodiment. And like Michael, I just want to reiterate and put that out there, that the spirit that if we're going to carry on David, we're going to hold him. Let's hold that incredible perseverance and that quest for knowledge, that joy that he brought from just his curiosity, and just continue to put that and feed that and plant that into our community. Thank you very much.
I want to say something. I knew David for about 20 years on a lot of different platforms, the last of which was Hot Springs. So that was kind of interesting. But some of the best memories I had of David was at the OFF, working in the kitchen, where here this man would bring hundreds, if not thousands of pounds of food into this kitchen, which is gracious and generous enough when you're feeding the volume of people that we feed over there. But then you'd see him out there working in the kitchen. And some of the grandest times I ever had with him was feeding people. And that's his legacy, is how many mouths this man fed. And the fact that when someone did something good in his environment, he would honor that, he would recognize it. And he saw so many things that we did here, like the first barter fair. He was an impetus as well as youth feeder. His encouragement created the next one, and his enthusiasm, he was a piece of gold. I'm really going to miss feeding people with him.
Well, she's my lady, love me, I'm a rock.